All right. So Mother's Day wasn't that long ago. And I was just curious. Well, it was a good day for me, but I just wanted to tell you something.
Why are you laughing? Do you think Mother's Day is a joke?
No, but
a lot of people, this is really important holiday for them.
You're right. It is. I actually realized how much I don't. It was exhausting.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of share a little bit of perspective here.
Okay.
You know what happens? I bet a lot of moms are like, "Oh, I heard from all of my children." Well, when there's 5 of them, I'm telling you what, they interrupted so many things.
Yeah.
I just arrived at my sister-in-law's house for like the big food and the banquet, and we were just like, the food is simmering, and and who calls?
And
one of the boys, and I'm like, and guess what? Talk to me for 30 whole minutes. By the time I sat down at that table,
yeah, I always think about that with birthdays.
Yeah.
How you get all the messages from everyone. Yeah. It's like all so well intentioned, and I'm so happy to get a message, but also like, no, I can't talk to everyone. You always wonder, like, should I message someone, or is it just going to bombard their day?
I don't want to because I know how I feel. But the truth is, would I have been pissed if I hadn't heard from all my kids?
Yes. See, walking contradiction.
I know. And then, sure enough, we sat down for dessert, and kid number 4 or 3, or I don't remember which one. 4, no 3, 2. He told. And we talked for a while too. So
see, what I'm confused about is we're in this stage where it's like, okay, I've got my mom, and then I'm married to a mom, and then I've got a kid that still needs direction on how to celebrate the mom. So like, which mom are we celebrating?
Oh God,
here?
Yeah, that's confusing. We go up, we go down, we go over.
So this year I decided to just be all in, and what we did was with my daughter, we both wrote in like 5 different cards.
Yeah.
And one was like, to my mom from her, and one was to her mom, and one was from me to Ashley, who's a mom. And it was just like, we're just doing a whole bunch of cards. Yeah. We'll all sign them all, and everyone will be happy.
You did a nice job.
It actually worked. Yeah, it was good.
Well, one funny thing, and maybe actually it might not be funny. Can I try to tell you if it's funny? Or it was, how about this? Not funny. It was interesting.
I'll pretend laugh.
Okay, thank you.
Can you guys get on the mic too? We'll have a chorus of laughter.
No, because now
we won't add any special effects.
It was I'm going to take away the word funny. Interesting. Noah. I was FaceTiming him, and I didn't have my glasses on, and the whole time he could not figure out what was different. Like, he was like, "Why do you?" And finally, he goes, "What's the matter?" He goes, "Why do you look so different?" What? And I was like, "Oh, I have my glasses on." He goes, "Put them back on."
No, that is funny.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
Not funny.
Or like, I feel like sometimes I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, that's so funny," and it's not like funny, but it's funny.
Yeah,
like it's just maybe ironic. I don't know.
I had this problem when I first got married. So to all my guys out there, I just still don't know if I understand it. When things are cute, like she would say, "That's cute," meaning like that's funny or that's interesting. And I just remember the transition period of like, what does that mean? Why are you saying that's cute? You're not talking about how it looks. Do you remember thinking this?
I don't know if it was cute. There was one other word that was similar, but it's along the lines of cute. I'm like, what do you mean? No, it's not that.
Yeah. I was just genuinely confused for a while. Like, wait, what do you mean that's cute? I don't get it.
Because cute isn't a word.
Yeah, it like took a while.
I've never heard you say that's cute.
I just hear like cute. It's like, that's patronizing. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's cute. Like you're just mocking. Is what I thought. I think at first.
Well, actually, one more interesting observation there is I do remember my mom. So, it was when I was a kid, it was the 70s. So the cord phone, my mom would be talking to her friends. You're watching your mom because there's nothing else to do in the 70s. And I remember she would say with no emotion at all, "That's hysterical." And I would be thinking, why is she not cracking? I actually remember thinking it doesn't look hysterical.
Yeah.
But she would use that word all the time with a straight face. Interesting observation.
Yeah.
Now I do it all the time and I totally get it.
Yeah, I do things like that.
That's funny.
Anyway,
Joe, you just did it.
Oh, that was cute, Joe.
Were you just trying to make me feel better?
No.
Oh, no. Well, I'm going to move on to a shout out. Is that all right if I move past that?
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to one of my clients who was feeling overwhelmed by combining 2 teams. So she had this one team where they are big fans of hers already. Then she moved over, and this person to the left the team. So now she has to bring 2 teams together, right? We've dealt with this before. It's not easy because they're big fans of whoever it was that left. We were coaching through that issue being so difficult, and I heard her say words like this: everyone hates me. Everyone on that team hates me. And I challenged her, and the shout out is because she pushed herself to narrow it down to actually one person.
Yeah.
And she talked through a strategy on how to talk to that one person. But you know how it is. If that one person is really allowed a big voice, it feels like everyone.
Yeah.
But in reality, it wasn't everyone. It was one person that she had to begin to change the relationship and figure out what the strategic conversation was. So I'm just proud of her for opening up that conversation, right? And then being able to recognize that it was just one person. And I thought it was a good shout out because I think a lot of us do it. I know I do it in my life sometimes where I will generalize something to be like, it's like saying you have a million things to do. It's like that.
Yeah. And it's one of those like you generalize enough and you start to believe that as the true narrative.
right.
The whole kind of saying it makes you believe it.
Yeah. It was a great coaching conversation.
That's really cool.
All right, personality myth, which I brought to the table. This one, have you had this one? I'm just going to say it first. Your personality dictates whether you can be a leader or not.
Well, yes and no. I think I heard that more in the past, and I think it's been debunked enough now. Like, I don't know why, but I haven't heard it in a while.
Should I not talk about it?
I'm just saying.
If it's already debunked, let's just move on.
You know, you're kind of just beating a dead horse here, Sundie. No, I just haven't heard anyone struggle with that in a while. Have you?
How about this? If there are any listeners struggling with the fact that they believe that certain personality types can be leaders.
Well, they shouldn't be because everyone's over it. Yeah. Like, I feel like such a jerk.
It wasn't jerky at all. That it's a bit of a myth. It's not a bit. It's a myth.
No, I do think it's a good one because maybe it's just different personality aspects have shifted. In the past, it was more like, oh, well, you have to be loud to be a leader. You have to be decisive to be a leader. And everyone knows that's not a thing. But are there other aspects? Like, is it something you were hearing come up? Or
I think specifically because I'm certified in Myers-Briggs, I had a lot of people believe that, and still do, believe it or not, Steve, that there are certain types that definitely are. And I know that I get a lot of, if you're a Myers-Briggs person, you look at the last letter with the J and the P.
Yeah.
That the J's tend to be more organized. That's how they see them. And P's tend to be like, free spirits. So they think that that's going to typecast them into being a good leader or not. And oh man, not the case at all. I believe any human being can be a leader if they want to. And the truth is, everyone is a leader to some extent because someone's always following them or underneath them in wherever they are in life. So I guess not to read. Well, you and I have talked about this too, Jacqueline. Like a lot of times in general, people typecast personalities, and that's what we don't want to do. But we definitely have had I've had a lot of people say, doesn't mean I can or cannot be a leader.
Yeah. It's making me think the angle of it I've maybe had more conversation around recently is the definition of leader being still in a lot of people's minds like the executive that's climbed the ladder.
Yeah.
And I will say, I coach a lot of leaders who struggle with this one because everyone under them thinks they have what it takes. And it's like, well, actually, that's not true. Like a lot of people don't. Most people are not wired to be a corporate executive. I think that's just reality. But like that doesn't mean they can't lead in other versions of a leader. So Ashley's a great example. She runs a business right now and she leads every day. She was never not interested, but never like wired to be like a corporate executive.
Right.
No way. There's so many reasons why it wouldn't work and she'd burn out. But like, that doesn't mean she's not a leader in different
So she found
versions
the right
of leadership.
place to be a leader.
I'm just saying like, there's more definitions of leader than just a corporate C-suite executive, which I think in the past is how that word was, how this discussion framed it.
Yeah.
Like you had to be super decisive and super like whatever to be a corporate executive.
All right. So I've been doing a series on Gen Z and I did a part 1 on just understanding Gen Z. And then part 2, I've talked about what it is that they bring to the workplace. And this one is part 3 for mostly because of our managers have been requesting how to manage Gen Z. So I put together some thoughts on it so we'd have something tangible to focus on. Now, I'm going to start with what not to do. But I really did reference a lot of these in episode 2, but this is what happens. What not to do is to micromanage them, get more rigid and structured in their work days, and to make assumptions. So 3 things really not to do. The make assumptions one is really about, well, like any human being, honestly, don't assume anything about anyone until you've truly gotten to know that human being. I mean, I want to be taken that way, don't you?
Yeah.
I don't want you to assume something about me because I'm tall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so don't make assumptions because they're from a certain generation that they're going to be a certain way. Get to know them as a person.
Yeah.
First of all, they hate it. They hate that too. And then the first 2 are just, they're no-brainers. It's just that, isn't it interesting that when we get stressed out, sometimes we push harder on the micromanaging and we push harder on the rigid and structured because it's how we feel like we can get in control.
Yeah.
And just doesn't work well.
Yeah.
It doesn't work there. It's in fact the opposite is what I would recommend to do right there. So just narrowing it down to those 3 things. So let's talk a little bit about what to do. The first one is to lean into curiosity. First of all, I say these things like they're new concepts, but they're not new concepts. We all love for people to lean into curiosity. But what I mean by them is to get curious about them as an individual and not assume that that the way that they're responding to me or communicating with me is bad or good. It says no. Get curious. They love to talk about what they value. They love to talk about themselves, but who doesn't? What generation doesn't like to talk about themselves?
Right.
So when you're managing them, just lean into curiosity. So if you find that we remember in our first episode, we talked about how sometimes when the stress hits their generation, that they can either get really loud or disappear, that middle ground is sometimes the thing that they're struggling with. If you're sensing that there's something that they're struggling with and there's a chance that they could shut down, lean into curiosity. Just hey, let's have a conversation about that before the snap, before the fear of what should I do with this feeling and emotion.
And I think that's one kind of cool way that managers can, serve them well, help. Because of the other thing we talked about in the first part of the series was how because of growing up on technology and stuff, like a face-to-face discussion, bringing up something that has any tension like that can be really difficult for a Gen Z, is maybe you can help by being the one to bring it up.
You can. Yeah, because they're going to struggle sometimes bringing it up. Absolutely. That's funny because it actually leans a little into the caring part, which is number 2. So curiosity ones like learn about them. Try to find what motivates them and why they're struggling with something. But in the caring part have you noticed, I love it, but when I was growing up and out of college, it felt like it was really hard to find any manager that was comfortable being, I'm going to do quotes, human.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's
mine
why
was
Office Space became the biggest hit movie, because it just so well captured some of that.
Some of the human side, which there was this other whole side that was not.
Oh, no, I mean the not human side.
Yeah, the not.
It captured the boss leaning on the desk with the coffee mug.
Yes. And so I think one of the things I've loved about myself evolving over time is that I always genuinely wanted to bring the human aspect into the world and into the workplace, but it was not welcome. Now it's like what Gen Z really thrives on is if you as the manager can lean into much genuine human connection as you possibly can. Don't try to get too corporate-y. Can I say that? What's the word? Just inauthentic. Maybe just inauthentic.
Well, yeah, because I actually saw, I think it was on Google Trends the other day, one of the top search things has been the psychological safety concept.
Right.
And, we often work with teams on how do you create safety and trust on the team. It's always interesting to me how there's some quick ways to build trust, but a lot of people tend to think, oh, we just need to have years and years of seeing you not fail me to be able to trust.
Right.
I always think that one's interesting. And then there's one more in the middle, which is what you're naming, which is just, if the way you interact is more normal and real, not contrived or forced, that also builds tons of trust.
Tons of trust.
Because if you look at people who naturally build trust easily, or like the people with woo, or, maybe like it's often that's what they're doing. They're just talking very natural with you instead of, okay, now I'm in a business setting, so I'm going to change how I talk. And that's a huge part of building the trust.
It was funny when we were at this workshop this last week, Tracy and I were doing one for the team, and we were talking about genuine communication. And one of the leaders said, I hate it when people start saying the thing, but they're saying nothing.
Yeah.
Because they're just dancing around the circle of something. And she's like, oh, it's the worst.
Yeah.
She goes, but somehow when we get nervous, we can tend to step into that.
Yeah.
So it was a funny call out there. Under the caring topic, when we work with new managers, some of them are really in awe over the small tip that we give them, Steve, on just having one-on-ones. This, in this particular generation too, I think is absolutely essential, because if you will have a cadence with, first of all, any new person just coming out of college, they have so much to learn and so much to absorb. If you can get that 30-minute cadence with a new hire, Gen Z, then the caring piece, you're going to be able to establish a relationship and figure out how they are motivated.
It's very similar to curiosity, because Gen Zs value so deeply genuineness, authenticity, purpose, having meaning at work. It's not just punching the clock. It's not just a job. It has to have actual meaning. And so much of that is caring about them as a person. If you're my manager, Sundie, and you don't care at all about me as a person, and I'm a Gen Z, then I'm like, well, then why am I even here? This job doesn't have any purpose or meaning at all. And so I think that's part of why the caring is so important, because it communicates that there is actual purpose in this, and it's not just a job that's separate from my life. Because that's, you called it out before, it's one of the fears there of Gen Z is like, no, work can't be this separate thing that isn't representative of me.
Right.
Otherwise, like, why am I wasting my time with it?
And in the caring, that so many of them often talk about purpose too. We know that one came up a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes the purpose comes through the relationship of caring too.
Yeah.
Like even if they're not loving their jobs, some of them feel like, well, my manager truly cares. I mean, how many times did I even get some negative comments on my YouTube about that, because they're saying, the number one, they don't want to work for someone who doesn't care about them.
Yeah.
They said it so many times.
Yeah.
I like to put the conversation of values underneath that, because I have values that I bring to the table, but so does the individual, the Gen Z that we're talking about today. And so to not assume, again, it's back to that thing where I don't want anyone to assume anything about me, to assume that just because I was motivated by this as a new hire out of college, that they're going to have the same set of values there. It's completely changed. The example, Dana is another coach, and we were talking about it. And even my husband, who's a professor, my God, the conversation around college right now, there is so much, because the values have changed. The story was different. Before it was like, get into the very best, be in the Ivy League, right? Now they're like, I mean, even the younger generation is still saying, we don't even care where you went.
Yeah.
They're like not impressed by that anymore.
Yeah.
It's more like, what did you experience? What friends did you make? What are your stories?
Yeah.
What did I learn? What did I accomplish and finish? Not where I went.
Yeah.
So there's those assumptions that I'm trying to lean into here around not pushing the same value sets. They've changed. The values, not just even for the individual, the values of their generation have changed.
And one of the big values that shifted, that I think is part of why caring matters so much, is the value of, you just need to show up, punch the clock, and get your job done so you can put bread on the table. Like that whole phraseology was like a thing. It was if there were memes at the time, that would be the biggest one.
Yeah.
And so then they're telling the next generation, like, you just gotta like buckle down and get it done.
Yeah.
Which makes sense when you're talking Great Depression, World Wars. Like, yes, that would be how it feels. But this generation has there needs to be purpose or I'm out.
Yeah.
And so like, caring about each other is what makes it matter. No, I'm not just going to be a cog in the wheel.
They want to it's a really great thing. They want people to be seen as people.
Yeah.
Not just as exactly as you said. So
but I don't know. It is an interesting framing with caring. It gets me thinking more about it too.
So the next one is around clarity. And there's two kinds of clarity that feels like it would be helpful in the manager relationship with Gen Z. It's the why and where do they stand. So the clarity in the purpose and the mission of what they're doing is really important to them because they want to feel like their time and energy is going towards something that they understand their purpose. Now, listen, the purpose doesn't necessarily have to be like, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I think purpose, I go right to like Mother Teresa. Like, so I go to these extreme examples. But just like in one of your episodes recently, you talked about the purpose could be just really understanding what it is that I do that contributes to the next thing, whatever step I am in the process.
One of the things I've experienced personally, and then hear over and over from people who are in corporate land and leave to do their own thing, is one of the most fulfilling things that provides the most purpose, and this is true for me too, is actually completing tasks and projects.
Yeah.
It's that. Because in corporate world, it's very rare that you get to complete anything.
Right.
And it's so fulfilling to go home at night and know like what I did today. Because there were so many days I didn't know what the heck I did. I was like, did I do anything?
Yeah.
I don't know. And to your point, that's not Mother Teresa purpose. That's just simply having, but it's purpose of like, I served a purpose today.
Yep.
I actually contributed to the world today.
And if you go day after day after day of feeling like, what am I doing and what am I contributing to? It can make them very discouraged.
It's one of the underlying dissatisfactions for, and why Gen Z's like, no, work, there needs to be some kind of, it needs to matter, not just kind of showing up and pushing paper.
Yep.
The point that you made is the clarity of knowing why I'm doing what I'm doing and where I stand.
Yep.
And one part of that stands out to me is, as a manager, if you struggle with this, or maybe sometimes the manager is like, well, I didn't get coddled that much. Why do I have to do that? Hey, okay, just set all that aside and just do this. To your point, have one-on-ones. Have a one-on-one with each person you manage and just simply prepare ahead of time 1 or 2 bullet points of like why what you do, Sundie, matters.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be the big Mother Teresa. It's just, hey, here's why the work you do matters for the team, for the customers, for the mission we have, and just share that. And I think it's those type of little things that gives the sense of clarity of why I'm doing what I'm doing and where I fit in.
And also the other thing that comes to my mind around the where is they often want to know where things could potentially go towards as well.
True,
like where the career path is. And what I'm feeling is that back to my generation of, it felt like we always had to guess those things. Nobody was really saying, I really love the way you did this, or here, let's talk about the progression of what could come next. It was always like,
Well, and it's funny because even with the organizational, I've seen this in some companies where Gen Zs want to know, where is the company headed?
Yeah, where's the company
And the leaders
headed?
are afraid, like, well, we can't say, because what if it doesn't go that way? And I almost laugh because it's like, well, remember, they change all the time. They're used to a world that changes. They're not afraid of that.
They just want to know what you're thinking.
They just want to know what you're thinking and what I'm part of. Is this something I want to be a part of? You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you're a manager managing Gen Zs, here's what I would just say where to start. I would think about whether or not I'm bringing my own assumptions into the relationship that I'm managing and try to see the person get curious about the actual individual. But how to do that was, I would give them the structure of, if you're not having one-on-ones with them, have one-on-ones with them where you can help them figure out what their purpose in their job is and also what their path is in moving forward. If you can articulate those things, that's a great start for you as a manager.